Amen. Thank you, Mac. Thank you, choir. Shar, Rebecca, Kathleen. Great music, and thank you for leading us as liturgists this morning, Mac. Everybody say, cheerful giver. Cheerful giver. Is it fun to give?
Yes.
All right. Well, that's good. I didn't really mean for you to answer that question, but there will be some that I mean for you to answer, but that's good. That's a great, encouraging response. Good job. When is it most rewarding to give? As I thought about those questions, some stories came to my mind about giving, and I thought I'd share a recent one with you. A couple of years ago, some friends of ours from the church that we served in Chicago, he was the youth pastor and I was the worship pastor. We served for some time there and kind of became close. And he and his wife were coming through Bakersfield, and they gave us about a 2-month heads up. They said, we're coming to town, and we'd like to spend a night with you, if that's okay. They have 4 children, and we live in a little 2-bedroom apartment. And so my first response was, we would love to see you, and let me put you up in a nearby hotel. And they said, no way, if we don't spend this time with you, we've got other places to go, and we just want to see you and spend this time with you. So we swept our carpets for every day for 2 weeks and bought some snacks and breakfast items that we knew they liked and blew up the blow-up mattress and received our guests late in the evening. And we had a great time. We didn't talk too much about college football because, as you know, I'm a proud Ohio State Buckeye, and he's from that other team that I can't even mention their name. I was brought up not even being able to say it because it was a curse word around our house. But see, it wasn't a great year for him. Hasn't really been a good decade for them, and I love Coach Harbaugh. That's all I have to say. Otherwise, we had the best time, and it was a lot of fun. And we found out that our son was not the only child at the time who liked to sleep in a fully lit room with background music on. So it was good. It was encouraging to know that ours wasn't the only one. We had a long evening of conversation and deep sharing, and it was good medicine for all 4 of us adults. I think that all of us have a story or two about giving. And if you don't have a story about giving, you maybe have a story about receiving that has inspired you to be a giver. As we talk more about giving this morning, I want to emphasize that God has abundance planned for those who give cheerfully. We are going to look at how we allow for abundance in our life, how we make room for it. Then we're going to talk about attracting abundance. Those are loaded words in today's spiritual climate, but we're going to see it today as a biblical principle. And then we're going to talk about advancing abundance and finish with God's greatest gift, his greatest expression of generosity to us, because our God is a giving God. Amen? Allowance for abundance. Everybody say, make room.
Make room.
I make allowance or room for abundance in my life through eagerness and enthusiasm. Or another way to say that is by being willing and excited. The Corinthians were eager to help because they saw the need. Christians in Jerusalem were facing a great need. They had double taxation from their own government and from the occupying Roman Empire. They had famine and food shortages. They struggled under a horrible economy in general, so they didn't even have their food source down, let alone clothing and shelter. Jerusalem was a large city, and there weren't enough jobs to go around, and even subsistence wages were heavily taxed. In addition to that, people of Jewish heritage who were spread out across the known world often moved back to Jerusalem to retire there. So the congregation of Jerusalem had many people who were underemployed, many others who were jobless, many others who were unable to work due to physical condition or age. Yet Jerusalem was the mother church, already caring for the poor in her own congregation, supporting the work of the apostles and others who went out as missionaries, evangelists, and church planters. They had outgrown the temple courts and had the constant pressure of setting up worship services wherever they could, and they had their own spiritual leaders and caregivers who gave their full-time attention to the needs and ministries of the church. Many new Christians understood that they received the gospel and initial nourishment in the faith because of the generosity of the Jerusalem church. And as they learned of their struggle, they were inspired to do something for them. And that's the bigger picture of this offering that Paul is talking about receiving from the Corinthians. It was going to help the poor in Jerusalem. James, there's some sort of feedback. I think I'm just getting it from this monitor or something. But it's like when I stand here. I'm trying to not stand here, but it's like booming back at me. I don't know. Maybe I'll back up a little bit. Okay, there we go. Maybe. All right. The Corinthians were eager to help because they were in community with others who were helping. The church in Corinth was not alone. There was a larger region of Achaia that included at least 7 other cities with churches in them, including the church in Macedonia, with whom the Corinthians had a friendly competition of sorts. When the enthusiasm of one congregation lagged, all they had to do was look at the enthusiasm of the others, and they got inspired again. Do you surround yourself with people who are excited about the church, who want to give and are happy about doing so? Or are your friends ambivalent? Or are they active complainers? The ones who give when it suits them, but then there are strings attached. The company we keep has important effects on us. The people we spend our time with can either bring us closer to Christ or push us further away from him and his purposes for our lives. The Corinthians were in community with others who were helping, going to be part of the solution. The Corinthians were the pace setters. They were the first to see the need and step up to do something about it. They sent an initial offering to the church at Jerusalem and promised that within the next year they would be able to bless them again. Blessing is the word that describes the phrase generous gift that we read about in 2 Corinthians chapter 9. Paul was hopeful that they would continue to do this willingly and according to their means, because it's about your willingness to give, not your means to give. Let me say that again. It's about your willingness to give, not your means to give. Although the Corinthians knew they were better off, way better off, than the Jerusalem Christians, or even the Macedonians, who had already pledged to give and gather their offering and would soon be sending delegates to go to Jerusalem with representatives of Corinth. Again, that friendly competition going on. And as the Corinthian Christians were giving generously to the needs of the Jerusalem church, they were assured that in their time of need, the generous gifts of others to the church may in turn provide for them as well. And as we shall see, God himself would provide. We see a preparation for enthusiastic giving in verses 3 through 5 of 2 Corinthians chapter 9. The Corinthian Christians sent an initial offering and pledged more, but Paul was aware that their preparation for giving was beginning to lag, and so he was looking for ways to encourage them, but not coerce them to finish their work of giving. So he sent Titus to coach them along and encourage not force them to prepare their offering for Jerusalem, so that when the Macedonian delegates come, they would find Corinth as ready and willing to give as they were, and as Paul claimed that they were. He was very concerned that his bragging about them to Macedonian church and other churches was not just a bunch of hot air. He wanted them to be prepared. What does preparation for giving look like in your life? Now, some of you are great with budgets. You're awesome with numbers, and it just kind of naturally comes together for you. Others of us are horrible with numbers and struggle to put budgets together. One of many principles that I heard Dave Ramsey say in Financial Peace University, which, by the way, we're offering Financial Peace University again in January. So mark your calendar. January 8th is the date. You'll find more information about registration later. But one of the principles that I heard Dave Ramsey say was something like this: you need to tell your money where to go, or it will just go. Preparation and wise decision-making, like we read about in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, brings security and confidence in giving that yields enthusiasm. There is a security that comes from preparation and wise decision-making that gives you a confidence when you give. There is a godly satisfaction when you give a planned gift that you can see is making a difference in your church and the world around you. And now, a few words about French fries. You thought you could get away with a sermon in this series without French fries, right? I just want you to know, in my extensive research for this sermon, just for you, I even went to National Geographic to find out information about French fries. See this picture up here? This is called Fries by Stefan Bonenberger. Those are two French fries overlaid with gold, put together to represent a cross. They were shown in a Munich art gallery in its own separate room until somebody found out that some wise guy, this was back in 2005, some wise guy went in and dug out the French fries out of the gold. Stefan sued the conservatory or the art gallery and was awarded a compensatory sum of 2,000 euros for the missing fries, possibly the most money ever spent on 2 strips of potato. This was a high point in the history of the French fry. The French fry, though indisputably a fry, may not actually be French. Some claim that the fries originated in Belgium, where villagers along the River Meuse traditionally ate fried fish. In the winter, of course, though, the river froze over, making it very difficult to get fish. So they ate these fried potatoes. It's said that this dish was discovered by American soldiers in Belgium in World War I. Since the language of Belgium is French, it was called French fries. I could continue to talk about French fries. Long before the boys in Belgium, Thomas Jefferson first started serving French fries along with macaroni and cheese at Monticello. It's true. And did you know that potatoes came from Peru? Yeah, they did. I could go on all day about this interesting stuff, but you know what? It would have nothing to do with the story of the French fries that Pastor Richard told 2 weeks ago. And we're good at doing that, aren't we? If we talk around something long enough, maybe we won't ever have to address the heart of the issue. But the heart of the issue is, of course, our heart, and this week, our attitude about giving. The point of the phrase is God is the source of our blessings. As we share the blessings he's given us with others, especially through the church, we begin to allow abundance, and in a biblical way, we begin to attract abundance. And how do we attract abundance? We see it in verses 6 and 7 through sowing and reaping. This principle of sowing and reaping is timeless, and it's in this way that we attract abundance. You reap what you sow. We read in Galatians 6:7. Also the words of Jesus from Luke 6:38. Give and it will be given to you. With the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Whatever you sow, positive or negative, your harvest, your reaping will be later and greater. However much you sow, positive or negative, your harvest and reaping will be later and greater. It's not going to be fair. And that's great news if you sow good seed, and not so great news if you sow negativity. But if you sow good seed from a grateful heart and you sow a lot of it, guess what kind of harvest you will reap? An abundance, right? Say abundance. Abundance. As I was preparing to talk about this, I was looking for a little inspiration about giving. So I watched a message by Craig Rochelle, the pastor of Life Church in Oklahoma. You know, the church that gives us the free Bible app. He said this: God designed us to pour, not store. That doesn't mean that if you're good with money and you make some wise investments and you build tremendous wealth that you're a sinner, but it does mean that hoarding for yourself is not in God's design. And neither is giving when your heart isn't in it. And that's the difficulty with talking about money. Too often, we're treated to people who make us feel guilty about what we are not giving. Or we fall prey to gimmicks, from anointed prayer handkerchiefs to bobbleheads of your favorite Christian celebrities. Guilt giving and gimmick giving lead to grudge giving.
Yes.
Guilt and gimmicks are primary reasons to make sure you take the time to make a decision about your giving. Then your giving will be attitude-based giving. Attitude-based giving, Paul says, make a decision from your heart. This kind of decision-making involves, go ahead, decision from your heart. They're awesome. Thank you, Daryl. This kind of decision-making involves the mind, emotions, and faith, all three, to make the decision. God gave you a mind and emotions for a reason. He also made you alive in Him for a reason. He wants you to use your mind, your emotions, and your faith, all three, when you're making a decision to give. This is how you guard against a sales job where you're not guilt giving, not grudge giving, not gimmick giving, but you're cheerfully giving. Because I've made my decision, now there is no pressure, there is no resentment, and there are no strings attached to it. Giving becomes a celebration instead of a duty, because I realize that when I give, I am initiating and participating in a cycle of abundance in my life, because it's not the size of the gift that matters. It's the size of the heart of the giver that matters. And so, through giving, I initiate and I participate in this cycle of abundance that we see in verses 8 through 11. Look at how God blesses the cheerful giver. Everybody say, all times, all things, everything I need.
All times.
All things, everything. We're going to come back to that. You're going to abound in every good work, not just barely get there, not just do one little thing, not just do my one little bit and then nothing more will come of it than that. You're going to abound. That's in all times, all things, everything I need. And look at how God provides. He provides the seed and the bread. All along the way he provides. From the time the seed is planted into the ground to the time the grain is harvested, to the milling process and into the bread and then into your mouth, in all times, all things, everything I need. This is good news to everybody up and down the food chain, too. Not everyone is a great farmer. Not everyone is a great baker. Not everyone is good at the milling process. And not everyone is physically able to gather in the grain when it is ready to be gathered. But everyone can do their part. And as they do their part with cheerfulness, they participate in something greater than themselves. And together, as the church, we all advance God's abundance in all times, all things, everything I need. We see God's abundance in supplying our needs, but even more than that, there is an overflow. It's overflowing into more from others, reaching others with the gospel, inspiring others to praise God, and coming back to you as others pray for you. The initial offering overflows into many expressions of praise. From running the marathon with Team World Vision, to going out and filling your box for Operation Christmas Child, to going with the Knitters Group to the Women and Children's Recovery Center at the Mission, to singing in the choir or worship team. There are many expressions of praise, and they flow from the expression of praise of the church. That's why your church needs you to receive your priority financial giving. But that's also why your church leaders don't insist that the church receives all your giving, because we love overflow. As one other observation about giving, cheerful giving as God designs it brings God's people closer together. We see in this chapter in 2 Corinthians, primarily non-Jewish congregations giving to the mother church, which was majority Jewish. It didn't matter, and it doesn't matter today. We are connected because of Jesus Christ and generosity. And that brings us to God's greatest gift. Jesus is beyond words. He is indescribable. And this gift from God, I pray today, will inspire each of us to give cheerfully and generously according to how God has blessed each of us. Amen.
Amen.